I'm assuming everyone can hear me. Let me know otherwise. If not, I'm really excited to be here. Thank you all for being here. I really, really love, obviously, to talk about nutrition because that's, what I do for a living as a registered dietitian, but especially around, finding ways to help people reach their goals through the holidays. And I know the holidays look a little different this year, and we might not be doing all of the typical holiday, Festivus celebrations as normal, but I definitely think that this is truly a season when we are really faced with a ton of, we're constantly being faced with all of these indulgent foods and drinks and all of these opportunities to push ourselves off track. And it doesn't really help that, the new year is always kind of looming ahead. So we get into this mindset of I'll just keep going and start in the new year. So I really love, helping people change their mindset, change their habits, and really approach weight loss and weight management from a different perspective. And that's really what I want to show y'all a little bit about tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should be able to see it no problem, but let me know. One sec. I want to find the right window before I do this. I have a million tabs open. You guys are like me, probably are on that same page. There's always 100 things going on in my brain. Okay, here we go. And I'm just going to go ahead and stop my video and minimize just the screen sharing. And I would just encourage you to do the same, just because I know sometimes it can be a little bit of a distraction to have the people looking around or whatnot, but totally up to you. So what we're going to talk about tonight, I'm going to give you 4 hacks, and these are really 4. Each one is from one step of my sort of signature process. It's called the BOSS method, and you will be learning a little bit more about that as we go on. But really, these tips are designed to help you curb sugar cravings around the holidays, really help you, stop thinking so much about food and be able to enjoy yourself a little bit more. Manage your weight, of course, if that is a goal of yours, but it does not have to be. I work with plenty of clients who are not focused on weight loss at all. It's really just focused about changing their habits. And I truly believe that you really can't focus on weight loss until you fix all of the habits and all of these underlying, your relationship with food or any type of underlying, especially for a lot of people, disordered eating habits or anything like that, that you really need to tackle your mindset before you can move on to that weight loss step. But really just overall going into the new year feeling like your best self. So I am a firm believer that you do not have to, just survive the holidays. We really want to thrive through them. So that's really what tonight's going to be about. But I did want to let you know, and I think Claire is going to put in the chat box, a link to download my free meal planning guide. And that will also get you on my email list so that you'll be the first to know about I send a community email every Friday with just different nutrition updates and topics and whatnot, but especially next Friday, I'm going to have a Black Friday sale going on. So if you like, what you hear tonight and you wanted to just know a little bit more about what it's like to work with me or just to even get free nutrition tips, once a week, definitely download that and sign up. Or you can just email me directly if you have any questions. My email is listed on the bottom right-hand side of all of these slides, and my Instagram handle is there as well, which is probably the easiest way to find me. So I know you're here because you have, probably been through the holiday New Year merry-go-round before, right? Where you're trying to adapt your lifestyle to really stick with your healthy habits throughout the new year. But that is truly setting a lot of people up for failure, not feeling successful, not being able to stick to your normal routine because life is crazy and we are so thrown off. So one thing that I want you to think about is kind of an overarching theme here. It's just really, you want to stay committed to your decisions throughout the holidays, but you do want to be flexible in your approach. So how you're approaching health, how you're approaching weight loss, how you're approaching your habit goals, and really just how you're approaching talking to yourself and all of your thoughts that you're having around the foods that you're eating or the lack of exercise that you're doing. You know, it's really easy to get wrapped up. So we want to be flexible. We want to be mindful of all of the things that are thrown our way around this time of year, but we do want to stay committed to what our goals are in the long run. So we might be here, or you might be here because of these 3 reasons. I'm going to just run through a few, and these are really the main things that I hear of people, you know, when they send me a DM or if someone reaches out about nutrition coaching. This is like, these are the top kind of I guess grievances about dieting or weight loss, which I can totally relate. So if you swear that you are doing all of the right things, but nothing is working, and you know, you might be counting calories or tracking macros, and you feel like you're eating healthy most of the time, but just nothing is changing, and this can be so frustrating. And really, it does boil down to time. You know, I got a message yesterday from a client who was flustered. It was like, I've been in a calorie deficit for 2 days and my weight hasn't changed. And, you know, I have to like very often talk people off of the ledge. I'm like, okay, it's 48 hours. You know, you probably have spent your entire life building these habits that have led you to where you are right now. And you can't expect these things to change overnight. It really just takes time and consistency. And that's one of the big things I'm going to talk about tonight, is how you can stay consistent when you're not motivated at all, because there's always going to be times when you're not motivated, but how do you work past that? Maybe you feel like you don't have any self-control. And oftentimes when I hear this, it's people saying they don't feel like they don't have self-control around sugar. And then I ask, oh, well, tell me about your diet. And it's like, well, I try to do low carb. If you are, it's one of those, it's a mindset barrier, right? It's just how you're programmed. It's how everyone is programmed. You always want what you can't have, and that is true for food. And if you are on a low carb diet, or you're trying to cut out, you know, around the holidays when you're constantly surrounded by sugar and you're thinking like, I'm just not going to have it, that's only going to lead to you wanting it even more. So the approach that I teach, and what I would love for you all to take away from this, is figuring out ways that you can say, okay, I'm going to have a cookie. I'm going to have just one cookie. I'm going to fit it in by, you know, maybe skipping the second slice of bread on my sandwich at lunch, because in the long run, a carb is a carb with how it breaks down, right? And finding ways to make these foods fit into your plan. And I want you to learn to feel really confident with doing that. Or if you feel like you're in a constant battle between wanting to lose weight and wanting to be social. And this is especially true during the holidays. And this is, you know, one of the things that hits hardest and hits home with me. And I'll talk about my story in just a little bit. But I definitely believe that even so this year, you know, food and drink is still going to be relevant throughout the holidays. If you're not traveling to go places, you're still going to be having Zoom happy hours and virtual happy hours, and I'm sure someone is still going to drop something at your doorstep or send you a care package that contains all of your favorite holiday treats. So figuring out how to navigate this is something that's really, really important for the long term, because what studies have shown isn't necessarily that, you know, people gain 10 to 12 pounds throughout the new year or throughout the holidays. You know, there's a lot of fluid fluctuation that can happen. That 10 to 12 is kind of overestimated. It's more like 1 to 2 pounds realistically that people gain from, you know, October 15th through the new year. And that's kind of because October 15th, if you think about it, is like the start of Halloween candy. So with that though, 1 to 2 pounds, the problem is that most people then in January are going on very restrictive diets that they can't stick to. And then they end up in this roller coaster of every year, okay, gaining a few pounds, trying to drastically lose it and not being able to do that. And that perpetuates the cycle. So at some point, you know, you do need to find a way to manage. I was talking to a client about this today. She was like, I think I'm just going to give up alcohol for a few weeks. And I'm like, you can do that. You know, I'll support you, but you need to think about the fact of like, is that something that you want to do in the long term? Because if not, we need to find a way for you to practice moderation. And you need to just become comfortable with only having 1 drink or 2 drinks and not letting that spiral into like, you know, eating a bag of Doritos on the couch or whatever it is. So what you need is a simple solution to help you feel amazing through the holidays without sacrificing your favorite seasonal foods. So that's exactly what I want to give you, a simple solution to avoid holiday weight gain. Trust me, if I, had a penny for every time I heard someone say, like, I will join your nutrition coaching program when life slows down or when things slow down. And the truth is, life is never going to slow down. The holidays are always going to be a stressful, busy time. And you need to find a way to get your nutrition plan to adapt to that. And that's the knowledge really that I equip my clients with. And I want to give you a little piece of that. So before we go any further, I would like to just officially introduce myself and let you know why I am so passionate about helping my clients reach their goals without traditional diets. Because for so long, I felt, that photo on the left was me when I was about 20 pounds heavier than I am today. And I was going through all of these cycles. I was trying to lose weight by, really, I felt like, honestly, it was like every single morning I would wake up and like try to skip breakfast and try to make it like as long as I can. And then I would just binge at night. And like that would go on for so long. And I could not figure out what the problem was, because it was like all of these diets were saying, 800 calories a day and that'll get you to your goal, or, just have like bulletproof coffee for breakfast and that'll keep you full all day. And that was just not true at all. And it wasn't until I, decided one day for myself, I was like, I'm going to, learn how to do this the right way. And I declared my major in dietetics and I started to learn and I started to apply, and I figured out what worked for me and what didn't. And I do think that, health in general and like weight management especially is very much glorified trial and error. You are not going to find, even for me, I don't have I don't have two clients that do exactly the same thing. Something works differently for everyone. And so again, this just gets back to like being consistent, not being discouraged, trying a bunch of different things, figuring out what works for you and your body. So make sure that you connect with me. I know that I said there should be a little link in the chat, but I also wanted to let you just right off the bat, because I know most times, webinars and things like of that nature, it's like rude to be on your phone, but I'm like, please tag me on Instagram, like put this on your Instagram story, send me a message, let me know what you loved, tell your friends about it. If you learned something, send them this webinar, send them my page. I would love that. And I actually just launched a podcast this week. So if you are interested, and the first episode is all about how to navigate Thanksgiving foods. So if you, again, want more information about the holidays, go and listen to my podcast. It's called Eat the Dang Cookie. And I do it with it's two other dietitians and I. And we basically all sort of have the same mentality, around diet and weight loss and food. So really excited about that. So would love if you listen to that as well and share it and subscribe and all that good stuff. So let's dive in. I want to break it down step by step for you. And I would love also, as we go through, if you have questions or if something resonates with you, or if you feel like, hey, this is something I really struggle with, like do not hesitate at all to put it in the comment box. I'll definitely look through and get to all the questions at the end. But sort of to introduce my signature process before I relate it to the holidays and what I'm going to teach you tonight. So my signature process is called the BOSS method. And each of those letters, BOSS, stands for a different phase. And this was a 12-week program that I'm now sort of transforming into a 6-week program that's going to launch in the new year. And basically what we do though, each of these phases, first starting with behaviors, focusing really on those habits, like I said, those things that need to be fixed before we can really focus on weight loss at all. And then we go into the nutrition part, teaching you how to optimize your nutrition. We want to find a structure that fits your lifestyle. So let's talk about, what you do for work, what your home life is like, how much time do you have to prep meals? Are you, what types of foods do you like, or dietary, all of this stuff, and sort of how that structure fits in. And then figuring out a way to make it sustainable. And that really, again, boils down to your mindset and boils down to your ability to stick with something, even when it feels like it's not working, because there are going to be times when it feels like it's not working. So one of my clients, I put a few client spotlights in here. Perfect example, my client, Rebecca, she actually worked with me. She signed out with me last September. And throughout the holidays, she was able to lose 33 pounds. The second picture is actually I think she went on to lose like another 13 pounds like after she took that picture, but she did awesome. And I remember her saying, you know, this is going to be the first Thanksgiving that I'm actually trying to just like work on stopping eating when I'm full. You know, as easy as that sounds, it's one of the hardest things to do, is like listening to your hunger cues. And I think that's a perfect example of like just being ready to try something different. And because really, if you've gone through this cycle again and again and again, you know that you need to try something different. That's where I was. And I feel like that's a lot of my clients, when they come to me, that's where they're at. And I love teaching them, for example, even through the holidays, how they can reach their goals. So let me know, again, in the chat, what do you struggle with the most? Do you struggle with obligatory eating, you know, kind of like family members telling you like, or putting more portion or more servings on your plate and you feel like you need to finish it? Or do you struggle with, you know, being tempted by sweets or being tempted by savory, or, you know, just too much food around, not knowing what to do with leftovers? Drop all of those questions and I would love to help you out. So these are the 4 phases. And right now I want to try to relate this more to what we're going to talk about tonight. So behaviors to prevent holiday weight gain, that's going to be our first focus. Optimize your diet to curb cravings. I am a sweets person, so maybe you can let me know that too in the chat box. Do you like sweet or savory? Because I feel like for me, I always want to write in like optimize your diet to curb sugar cravings. And I'm like, oh, not everyone craves sugar. That's just me. Structure your holiday food and drink into your plan, and achieve sustainable success all the way through the new year and beyond. So right off the bat, this is not about calories. This is not necessarily about weight loss. It can be about things like having better energy levels, you know, having more confidence, being in a better mood, less cravings, less hunger, you know, spending less time thinking about food. And honestly, you know, I think that focusing more on these things and focusing less on weight loss throughout the holiday season is the way to go, because these non-scale victories, this is what you need to focus on. I'm kind of, you know, I guess prefacing what we're going to talk about towards the end, but thinking about these things that really keep you motivated when the scale is not moving. I have been telling all of my clients over the last week or two, like, hey, I want you to just focus on maintaining your weight over the next, you know, month and a half. And because breaks like that are good, you know, your body, and we'll talk about this too, you know, your body does not like drastic change, and it's good to give yourself breaks. Weight loss plateaus are a good thing because it allows your body to adapt, and then you can better, you know, get back on track and get back to it when you feel like you're ready to, and your body's not in this constant state of shock. Like, why am I dropping a ton of weight so fast? So I don't think, you know, we could go really any further in this behavior aspect before we talk about mindset. So your mindset is really everything this time of year. How you think about special foods. So what is your approach to cookies or alcohol? Are you going into the holidays thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to blow it out of the water because January 1, I'm doing dry January? Or are you thinking, I'm not going to have any of this because I've been doing so well and I really want to maintain it throughout the new year? You know, I really want to maintain it through the end of the year. You need to find a middle ground about how you're approaching these special non-negotiables, as I like to call them. How do you talk to yourself when you fall off track? So are you beating yourself up? Are you saying, I shouldn't have done that? I shouldn't have eaten that. If I could only do this. Those types of thoughts are honestly just going to continue to sabotage your success if you're not giving yourself a little bit of grace, giving yourself permission, being kind to yourself. You're never going to work past this, you know, mental block of always feeling like you're doing something wrong and then wanting to like constantly make up for it. I'll start in January mode. We already know about that one. And then your past experiences and your limiting beliefs. So again, getting back to my client, Rebecca, where she was thinking going into Thanksgiving, like, hey, I've never approached Thanksgiving with kind of this mentality of like, I'm going to eat what I want and I'm going to stop when I'm full. And I think for so many people, there's this stigma, for everyone probably, you know, there's a stigma of like Thanksgiving. It's like you just stuff yourself until you're like so sick that you can't move. It's like roll yourself home, you know? And it's like, these experiences shape our perception of like what we are actually able to do. And our mind gets so stuck in these past experiences and these things that we think are true, all of these limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves to think like, I always have to have dessert after dinner. Oh, or like, I always have to, have this at so-and-so's house when they serve it to me. And we have all these thoughts that we convince ourselves are true, but really they're not. You can make the choice at any time if you're going to change your mindset, if you're going to change your habits. So flip the script. And that's what I encourage all of you to do over this next, holiday season. And again, let me know how it goes. Send me a DM. We can chat about it. I would love to hear how these, processes kind of work for you in your life. But as I was mentioning, when you're kind of thinking about special foods and maybe putting them off limits, your brain, again, your body as a human, everyone, you are designed to survive. And that survival mechanism is going to automatically trigger, if you're in this restriction mindset, you're going to crave high fat, high sugar, high carb foods because that's immediately what your body wants, because it needs energy, it needs glucose. If you're even thinking that you can't have them, and especially if you're in a very low calorie deficit, you are just setting yourself up for this rebound, right? Because we don't want to lose weight rapidly. That's just naturally how it goes. Our brains don't like change, our bodies don't like rapid change. But if we can change our mindset to approach these situations without restriction, and we eat balanced meals, we allow ourselves to have carbs, we allow ourselves to have cookies when we see them, maybe have one cookie and then move on with our day and not beat ourselves up, you can literally change the way that your brain responds to cravings, responds to calorie deficits, and responds to weight loss. So step one in this kind of process is that we want to set simple habit goals. What are your weight loss expectations? Should you just focus on maintenance? What are your exercise expectations? Should you just focus on increasing NEAT? And NEAT is something I talk about a lot with clients. It stands for non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is how many calories you burn without doing structured exercise. So this is like everything except the 60 minutes that you spend at Orange Theory or whatever you're doing, so like taking the stairs, upstairs, walking upstairs to go to the bathroom instead of going to the bathroom, 5 steps from your office, or, reaching in, even things like reaching into a cupboard and stretching, or, folding laundry. All of these things count. Cooking, especially too. So can you focus on doing more of those? Can you set a habit goal, for a step goal? I think that's a great habit goal. It's like, okay, I'm just going to set my step goal for like 5, even if it's 5,000 steps a day, make it something really easy. Balanced meal expectations. So maybe a good habit goal is like 1 salad a day or 1 vegetable-based meal a day. Dessert and alcohol. So one thing that I like to set for myself is dessert 2 times a week. It's funny because like usually I try to stick to like Wednesdays and Sundays. Those are like my dessert days. But if I have dessert on another day, my boyfriend like picks on me. He's like, oh, like it's not Wednesday. Like, what are you doing? And I'm like, leave me alone. It can really be any days that you want. But the point being that like kind of setting these boundaries for yourself and make it simple. Allow yourself to have something to look forward to, but know your limits. Managing cravings. Increased stress from the holiday season, especially from 2020 in general, is going to lead to increased cravings and increased fat storage. If you have, as I just mentioned, this restrictive mindset, it's going to increase your desire to eat those high fat, high sugar, anything that it is that you're craving and you're telling yourself you can't have. And then again, the third thing that I want to get into is the foods that typically are high in processed sugar are sort of perpetuating this blood sugar roller coaster that is leading to greater cravings. We are constantly surrounded by buzzers. So this is a good thing to think about. I love talking about this with my clients. Buzzers versus cravings. So a buzzer is something that you want because you see it or you smell it or you hear about it, or if you're on the boardwalk and you walk by boardwalk fries and you're like, I want boardwalk fries. Or if you're not, you're just doing your work, you're like doing your thing, and someone comes home with, you know, oh my gosh, one of those like holiday popcorn tins that are like so delicious. You know, they have like the 3 different flavors. And then immediately you're like, okay, I need to eat this holiday popcorn tin. That's like a buzzer, something that you weren't even, you know, pre-contemplating. Whereas a craving is kind of an intuitive cue from your body. You know, let's say you're just chilling on the couch and you're like, wow, like I could really use, like, I think mac and cheese sounds delicious. You know, that is the difference. And really thinking about those 2 things, especially during the holiday season, because we're surrounded by buzzers, can really help you cut back on the amount of sugar or the amount of alcohol or whatever it is that you're eating. So let's talk a little more about this blood sugar roller coaster. And I just put an example here, you know, 10 a.m. or 8 a.m., 10 a.m., noon. Let's say 8 a.m., you're rushed, you grab a banana and a granola bar. Your blood sugar is going to spike up very quickly. And then at 10 a.m., you grab pretzels for a snack. Again, you have this blood sugar spike. So this little curve here is your blood sugar levels. You can think about it that way. And then at noon, let's say you have like a rice and veggie bowl. And so your blood sugar sort of spikes up again. And the reason, you know, these are all seemingly healthy foods. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused, is because a lot of these healthy foods, though, they really are just carbohydrate. And it's not that carbs are bad, but what happens if you're eating carbohydrates by themselves, then it's going to spike your blood sugar very quickly. And then your blood sugar drops very quickly. And that drop is really what leads to cravings and hunger and this kind of like brain fog, because basically that drop is signaling your body like, hey, we are losing glucose in our blood and like we need energy. So you better go eat some cookies or something because like I'm losing it over here, right? So the more that you can kind of manage not those rapid spikes, but think about it as being more of like, you know, a little like sloped curve where your blood sugar is not just immediately spiking, the better energy levels you're going to have, the less cravings you're going to have, the less hunger you're going to have, and you're just going to feel better overall. So again, seemingly healthy foods, but break down quickly into sugar. So how can we prevent this? So the main way is really just thinking about balance. So the goal is not to eat 0 carbs. It's just to eat carbohydrates consistently. So you want to have about the same amount of carbs at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And you also want to make sure that you're always pairing your carbohydrate with a source of protein, a source of fat, and a source of fiber. And doing that is going to make sure that, again, you're not having these really crazy spikes. It's going to prevent that blood sugar spike from happening so quickly. And, you know, really proteins and fats, I think a lot of people are, you know, familiar with those. The thing that I really like to talk to clients about is fiber. So that's what I want to talk a little bit more about. And that's because that's one thing that I think you can do a little bit more of. So it's not supposed to just be raspberries there. There'll be more foods in a second. But the step 2 for you over the holiday is to think about adding more fiber. So the reason that fiber is so important, and fiber is not a macronutrient, I just want to clarify that. Your 3 macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but it's the indigestible type. It's the indigestible part of the carb, so it does not spike your blood sugar. So high fiber foods are also high in volume, and they expand in your stomach, and that will increase your digestion and increase your metabolism. So you're going to actually burn more calories when you're eating a high fiber diet, but because fiber is indigestible and you don't actually get any calories from it, you'll start to burn body fat and you'll start to lose weight more effortlessly while still feeling full, because these foods that are high in fiber are filling your stomach. So primarily high fiber foods are non-starchy vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, mushrooms, onions, all of those things. But they're also found in all of these foods, berries especially, lentils, beans, pecans, nuts, things like that, even whole grain products. So if y'all did bring, or if you want to participate in the little meal prep demo that I'm gonna do, I just wanted to kind of like preface that that's like one of my favorite hacks is adding cauliflower rice or adding vegetables. One of them had shredded carrots, one of them had cauliflower rice. To something like oatmeal, you know, you can really boost the fiber, or just any meal, honestly. But I think it's a great way at breakfast to get vegetables and get extra fiber is by adding those foods in, and you really don't even notice that they're there. I put frozen cauliflower in my smoothies all the time. You can do it with frozen beets. You can do it with the frozen carrots. It really does, like, you know, beets and carrots have a stronger flavor, but cauliflower, like, if you eat cauliflower rice on its own, it's obviously not that great. It's like really plain and kind of gross, but like it's a great way to add volume. For example, like a takeout meal, you know, you can eat the rice. Let's eat half the amount of rice that you normally do and add 2 cups of cauliflower rice to make up for it. So that way you can still eat a lot, because everyone loves to eat a lot, right? At least I do. So speaking of, let's talk about how we can structure our holiday food and drink into a weight loss plan. This is something that this is like my favorite part. As I was saying, I think at the very beginning of, you know, working with my clients, is teaching them. This is a text from a client that was like, I didn't think I could live and have fun and lose weight. And that, like, getting messages like that make me so happy. You know, it's not even like, oh, like the scale. Obviously, I'm proud of my clients anytime if they see a number on the scale or something, but it's more so like, I've been eating more than I've ever eaten before, and I'm seeing these results. And that's what, like, really, really, really makes me so happy, because people should not be afraid of food. You know, you should not be afraid of food. You know, every food has a place in a healthy diet, and I firmly believe that. So how do we find ways to make that work? We always want to have a plan. So I think that having, and this doesn't necessarily mean just having a meal plan, right? Because I don't meal plan necessarily, but I do think it's important to take time every week, take a few minutes, 15 minutes. I encourage all of my clients to do this, to really look ahead a few days and see what you have coming up. Like, okay, Wednesday, do I have back-to-back meetings from like 9 to 5? I should probably plan on, you know, having something, even if it's like a, you know, bag salad mix and pre-cooked chicken. Like, I should probably have something for lunch that I can grab in 5 seconds. Or do you know that your mornings are crazy because you're trying to get your kids out the door to school? So maybe all you do is focus on prepping breakfast and prepping like some egg muffins. You know, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but it's like, let's plan for, you know, the meals that may be off, and let that happen, especially around the holiday season. I think you don't want to save calories for going to a party. You don't want to make up for something, you know, don't even think about it, right? It's like, go about your normal day, plan for what you can. And then those occasions that happen, like, let them happen. Again, back to that mindset of like not feeling guilty and moving on. Keeping snacks on you. I cannot emphasize this enough. Like, always keep snacks. I always have like so many snacks with me all the time, but it really is important. You know, you don't have to be hungry to eat. And I definitely don't think that you should ever force feed, but I do think that there's a tipping point between like, oh, I could eat something, and then like wanting to chew your arm off 5 minutes later because you're so hungry, and you want to catch yourself before you get to that point. So snacks are obviously a great idea. Choose your non-negotiables in every situation. So anytime you walk into a room, you know, if it's at a holiday party, if you're at a wedding, at a cocktail hour, if you're out to eat and you're looking at the menu, if you're at a friend's house and there's tons of appetizers around, whatever it is, you know, choose your non-negotiables. So look at everything that's there and think like, okay, this is a really special food that, you know, this is like Grandma Jane's stuffing that like I have to have at Thanksgiving, but like I don't really care about pumpkin pie that's like from, you know, Giant Eagle or wherever, you know. So really think about like, what are the things that you really want to have? And like, when can you have it? Do you want it right now? Like, you can have it now. Like, how much do you want that's going to make you feel good without making you feel guilty? You know, you really have to unpack all of those types of thoughts. But the first step is picking the things that matter the most, and then letting all of the other stuff go, because food is so abundant. And this mindset, this food abundant mindset, is one of the most important things that you can do. Is like, you know, on Thanksgiving, like, you can have Thanksgiving food 365 days a year if you wanted. There's no stopping you in March from going to get the stuff to make a pecan pie. But we're in this mindset of like food restriction, you know, especially when you're in a social setting and everyone's eating, and you can sometimes like feel yourself, you know, getting stressed if you still have food on your plate. One of the activities that I sometimes have my clients do is actually practice leaving a bite of food on their plate, because we get so stuck in this like need to finish everything mentality, and we're anxious about it. And when really it's like, there's plenty of food. I'm not encouraging food waste, obviously. But you know, for all intents and purposes of like getting out of that mindset, I think leaving one bite of food on your plate is an okay thing to do. And then don't forget about basics: hydration, sleep, self-care. That is so important during this time of year. Take care of yourself, manage your stress. Those things are very, very, very important, especially when it comes to, you know, that's part of the plan. And sometimes you have to sacrifice things here or there to really make sure that you are hitting the basics, because those are the things you have to do day in and day out if you want to be successful. Consistency, again, thinking about day in and day out, really is the key to sustainable success. So this is the fourth and final thing that I want to hit on, is motivation, because that's the key, the magic behind being sustainable is staying motivated. But it is impossible to feel motivated all of the time. No one feels motivated all the time. I was thinking 2 weeks ago, I mean, I'm sure you guys know, you're all in the DMV area. It was like really stressful with the election, and I like literally ate pizza 4 days out of the week. And I was like, what am I doing? But I didn't have any motivation to cook. I was just like, nope, it's not happening for me this week. But that's okay, because those weeks are going to happen. But, you know, when I am motivated, like today, I, you know, woke up at 5:30. I did a Peloton ride. I, you know, got all of my work done. I like, am going to cook dinner, you know, and when you are motivated, you can make those choices that are a little bit harder, and you want to practice your good habits when you are motivated. Maybe track your calories or track your macros, or focus on getting good quality foods. But when you're not, keep it simple. It's okay to eat convenience foods. It's okay to indulge. Take care of yourself. It's okay to sleep in. I was mentioning this today to a client, like, you should always prioritize sleep over waking up for a workout. And she was like, I just feel so guilty. I was supposed to wake up this morning for a workout, but I was so tired. And I'm like, sleep is, again, the basic. Like, sleep is the most important thing. If you're not sleeping right, or if you didn't get enough sleep, you're not going to get a good workout anyways. So, you know, it's okay to do these things, but don't give up. You know, don't give up entirely. Just because you had a crappy night's sleep doesn't mean you need to go to Einstein Bagels and get like, you know, 3 egg and cheese sandwiches for breakfast, right? It's like, focus on what you can control. Don't give everything up, but one step at a time. Know yourself. So know when you're motivated. Know what day of the week you're most motivated. Know what time of day you're most motivated. Know what time of year you're most motivated. You know, it always is going to ebb and flow. Think about situations that might decrease your motivation, or think about things that increase your motivation and work off of that. It's really about knowing yourself and practicing those good habits when you can, and really making them stick in the long run. So what to do when you get off track? We want to modify, don't restrict. So it's okay, you know, if you have one day that's like a super great, like Thanksgiving, you know, if you're eating 3,000, 4,000 calories on Thanksgiving, the next day, it's okay to modify a little bit and eat a little bit less than normal, but don't get stuck in this cycle of like, oh my God, I ate so much, now I'm not going to have anything. Focus on those non-scale victories and trust the process. And that is the most important thing. So those are kind of our 4 steps: simple habit goals. We want to add fiber. We always want to have a plan, and we want to practice consistency. And this is really the foundation for lifelong flexibility. So this method that I have created, the BOSS method, is a really easy way to, I mean, it's simple. I'll say that. It's straightforward and very simple, but it does, you know, require, it's tough. You know, it requires getting a little uncomfortable. It's not an overnight process, but I think that, you know, unfortunately we live in this culture where it's like, I want it now. And that's not the way to go about a sustainable change in your health, a sustainable change in your habits, or a sustainable change in your weight. And that's why I do think that, you know, my program works. And as I showed you, you know, it's kind of what I figured out has been what worked for me over time. And that's really what has helped all of my clients get to where they're at. If you're committed to trying something different, so I would encourage you to keep reaching out, stay in touch. If, as I said, the Boss Method program is going to launch again in January, and I would love to invite you to join if you wanted to learn more. The Balanced Nutrition Guidebook includes a lot of the tips that we talked about tonight, but it goes a little bit more in depth. It also has some mocktail recipes that I'm really excited about. It has a bunch of like, you know, healthier kind of, but still delicious holiday recipes. And it just gives a little bit more of a roadmap of kind of the things we talked about tonight. And that's going to be part of my Black Friday special. That's going to be a 48-hour fast action bonus. So if you purchase the Boss Method Core Bundle, which are all of my materials that I teach in my Boss Method program, they're going to be bundled for a Black Friday sale. If you purchase that before next Sunday at 7 a.m., you'll also get the Balanced Holiday Guidebook and a meal plan. So I don't know, Claire, if you had an idea, I'm open to doing like kind of Q&A now, or if we wanted to go through and do a meal prep, or I don't know if anyone even, you know, was prepared for the meal prep part. We can kind of see, but I'm going to stop my screen share unless there are any slides that anyone wants me to go back to. Maybe speak up now and I can do that while I still have it up.
Yeah, so go ahead and let us know if you do want to revisit any of the topics really quickly, but we will be sending out a copy of this presentation in this meeting, so don't feel like you have to scramble to write things down, and don't feel like you have to, you know, shout out if you need to, but let's go ahead and do a little bit of Q&A, but at the same time, please know that we will also include some of these really fun breakfast meal prep and a little bit more information about Olivia and her process. So we will definitely make sure to include that in the follow-up as well. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And if not, I have a couple I can ask, or we can move on to the demo portion.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to touch on also what's just listed in there, just a few tips, because I appreciate everyone interacting as we went through. So like tempted by sweets and do not overindulge in public. So I guess, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? I mean, like you don't want to eat them when you're in public, even though you're tempted by them. Just curious to like know a little bit more. If you feel comfortable sharing, you can type it in the chat. Yeah, emotional eating. And so that gets back to like kind of what I was mentioning with your whole like, you know, your brain basically controlling what your thoughts are around food. As soon as you get stressed in any type of way, whether it's anxiety about work, or because when you think about it, we haven't really evolved, you know, as fast as the times have. Your brain is still in like fight or flight mode all the time. Your stress, your brain doesn't know the difference between work stress or like, you know, a famine stress. And so that's why, you know, naturally we're kind of programmed anytime there's stress of any type, or sadness, or even happiness, you know, like we want food. And so like that's really normal. But I think it's good to know that like if you're impulsive, you know, maybe taking a second, sitting back. I think that like drinking, you know, like warm tea, drinking a cup of hot tea, and just maybe like going outside, like taking some deep breaths, you know, or just like trying to do something to get your mind off of whatever it is that's like giving you this type of emotional like break. And that can really help to kind of like bring you back to the moment and not, you know, go as overboard. Oh yeah.
So we do have one quick question in the chat, which relates to kind of your demo anyway. Tamara asked, what would be a good thing to eat for breakfast and or lunch before these big holiday meals? So I guess trying to sort of plan for some of that indulgence and, like you said, those non-negotiable foods. What are your recommendations there?
Yeah. Well, first does anyone here have the ingredients or wanted to do the demo? Because if so, I can start talking about that question while we're kind of going through it and kind of do two things at once. I'm just curious. if not, it's no big deal. I'm like not offended. Okay, cool. So I'll just keep answering them. So I do think, as I said, like don't skip. I think that's the most important thing, is that like you want to have, basically I would say have your normal breakfast and lunch. And you want to keep it balanced. So I would say, you know, a little bit higher in protein is probably a good idea, because protein decreases your hunger hormone. So we have this hunger hormone called ghrelin. You know, insulin we always hear is like our fat storage hormone. So our hunger hormone, protein will down-regulate that for longer. It down-regulates it to a greater extent and for longer than fat or carbohydrates. So I think that having a high protein, high fiber snack before, you know, right before you go, like 60 minutes or so before you go to a dinner or holiday party or whatever, something like my go-to is like baby carrots and hard-boiled eggs. That's like always what I do. You know, you have the fiber from the carrots and you have a lot of protein. You could also do like a high fiber tortilla with like some deli turkey rolled up with maybe like some pickles or something, you know, a simple snack like that. But I really think that you would want to keep your meal schedule as similar as possible, because the whole idea is to kind of move away from treating these occasions as like going all out. Drinks such as pure protein as a meal replacement. It depends on the type. So some of those, because in order for something to be a meal replacement, in my opinion, it has to have protein, carb, fat, and fiber. Those are like the 4 things that I'm like, you should get those in all your meals. I think that some of those, and I'm not sure pure protein, what the exact nutrition breakdown is, but I know a lot of those protein shakes just have like 40 grams of protein, but they don't have any carbs, they don't have any fat, they don't have any fiber. So it's not really a complete or balanced. You could add something to that. You know, if a protein shake only has protein, then let's say maybe you add a slice of toast with an avocado and maybe like, I don't know, yeah, avocado toast. That'll work, because that's got like your carb and your healthy fat there. So then to like balance it out. But I would say if it is, you know, to be a meal replacement, I would say it should be at least 300 calories, and it should have carbs, proteins, and fats. And you can always add fiber. You know, you could have berries on the side or have a piece of fruit on the side with it if it didn't have fiber in it. But that's what I would say to look for.
So I also think something that's been sort of popular in the news lately, and I'm sure you get a lot of questions about sort of various dieting options. I'm curious if you could talk a little bit about the pros and cons, or sort of, you know, any cautionary tales or anything like that related to diets like keto or intermittent fasting, or kind of any others that spring to mind, because I know people tend to have a lot of questions about those, and they're talked about a lot, but I know from a nutrition perspective, it may not be recommended for people.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely, as I said, you know, kind of earlier, like no 2 of my clients are the same. And I really do believe that different things work for different people. And I'm sure that there are people out there who can do keto for their entire life and they feel great. I have yet to meet someone who does that. But for me, I think the biggest thing is like, is it sustainable? Because if you're going through these periods of rapid weight loss and then rapid weight gain, you are basically shocking your metabolism into weight loss resistance. And I've seen that with a lot of my clients who are a little bit older, you know, maybe in their 60s, and they've gone through these weight loss phases for, you know, 30, 40, 50 years, and they're just unable to lose weight. And I think that then we also get into this mindset of like, well, it's hormones, well, I'm getting older, well, this and that make it hard. But it's just because, you know, your body can't do it anymore, because it's like, look, I've lost weight for you like 20 times. Like, I'm done losing weight for you, you know? So I think the first thing is like, find something that's sustainable. I do recommend, I think that intermittent fasting, I recommend all of my clients do a 12-hour fast, you know, whatever it is, 9 p.m. to 9 a.m., 8 to 8, you know, something simple like that. There are benefits of fasting, but the metabolic benefits are after 10 hours. And especially for women, it can actually be harmful for our stress hormone response if we're fasting for, you know, 16 hours, like a lot of the fasting protocols call for, just because, again, biologically we're designed to like have a little bit more body fat and we need to eat. So I think that like a 12-hour fast is fine, but intermittent fasting isn't magic. If people are losing weight while they're doing it, it's because they're eating less calories because they're skipping a meal. I don't think anything like around intermittent fasting is like magic for weight loss. And I guess kind of the same thing for keto. You know, I think that high fat, and keto is often like, I think, misunderstood, because keto is a really high fat, you know, if you're really in it to win it with keto, you're eating like 95% fat and like 5% or like 3% protein and like 2% carbs, you know, so it is very, very high fat. And I think people think it's like a high protein, high fat diet, but, you know, I think that the fat can be very satiating, and I think that people probably often aren't as hungry on it. And I do think there is a link to excess sugar consumption and like brain, you know, neurological, like brain fog, or, you know, they're doing some studies now with like keto and Alzheimer's treatment. And I think that excess sugar can be, you know, somewhat detrimental, but, you know, that goes to say for anything, you know, so can too much fat or too much protein. So I don't really think, unless you like have diabetes and you need to do keto, or if you're in any type of like, it's also used for like epilepsy for kids who have seizures, because it does, you know, your brain transitions from using glucose to using fat, and somehow that can help prevent seizures. I mean, the science behind it is really still like not well understood. So, you know, I think if it works for you, it does, but I wouldn't suggest doing it for any particular health reason.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective. And I know I've learned a lot in sort of the last hour from you. And I think we may have time for one quick question if anybody has one. I'll give it.
Yeah, I think one of them popped up. It was just to me. So
Okay.
I think may have meant to be for everyone, but it was just about bloating. So recommendations for fighting bloating. And I get that a lot too. That's I feel like a really common question. So I think the number one thing that you can do is consistency with the size of your meals, because you just cannot produce enough digestive enzymes to digest, you know, 800, 900, 1,000 calories of food. And a lot of times when you're eating out, that's what it is. You know, you just can't digest that much food at one time. And when the food, then you don't digest it, it sits in your stomach and it continues to break down. It continues to ferment and produce gas. And that's what causes this bloating. So really, I would say the first thing would be to try to cut back the size of your meals, and maybe try to do five smaller meals, or, you know, 3 meals and 2 kind of like larger snacks. And that'll really help. Also stress. Like stress is really probably the second biggest cause that I see of bloating that people don't often think about. But you're basically, when you're stressed out, again, you're in fight or flight mode. So your body wants to stop all of these internal processes. So your digestion like can come to a halt if you're really stressed out, and it can also really damage your microbiome and your gut health. So I would say focus on stress relief, self-care, maybe take a probiotic, and like focus on the size of your meals a little bit smaller.
Great. Well, I think with that, we're pretty close to time. So I'm going to go ahead and call it. But thank you again to everyone for joining us. And a big, big thank you to Olivia for kind of giving us these tips and hopefully prepping us for success through the holidays. If you have any further questions, or if we didn't have time for your question, I'm going to go ahead and link an interest form on her website, and also her website, just so that you guys have her contact information. And again, if anybody is also looking to engage more with the University of Maryland. There are a lot of great events coming up. I know it's been kind of crazy in the virtual world, but it's really allowed everyone to come together across different geographic regions. So feel free to sign up for an event you wouldn't normally, or in an area that you wouldn't normally. And with that, have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining us. Stay healthy and go Terps.
It's very good. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks.
Claire, I have a quick question.
Yeah. I'll stay on just a second.
Kind of log off. Just a logistics question.
Sure.